Dr. Sharif, since you're here and everything like that, how concerned are people in Bangladesh about the safety of buildings? Because I did see that one of the stories I reported was about Hong Kong and the high-rise fire and all along those lines. So, and those high-rises can be built kind of tall, and maybe they aren't as safe as they should be, and everything like that. But I just wondered, how safe do people feel in your country with some of these buildings, and are they up to code as best as you can tell?
Yeah, this is actually very biggest concern. And recently, you know that Bangladesh has earthquake and 10 people died and many people injured. Besides that, I want to be very honest. Bangladesh, especially Dhaka, urban planning is not good. It's a highly density populated country. It's 36 million people live in Dhaka, and people has awareness, but still we have to go for urban planning and everything. But it's almost impossible, as many people live in the very small places. Hope for the best, and yeah, we can learn from Western world how they can develop this kind of ecosystems or this kind of plan or safety and securities and all of the things. And yeah, we can create a better urban planning through this process.
Yeah, that makes sense. You guys do better with the urban planning. I know that it can be an issue even in the states here in the U.S. because there have been incidences in places like California, even here in North Carolina and other places as well, whether it's been bridges or buildings or other things, but nothing as devastating as what some of the ones have been recently in other countries. But it'll be interesting to see how people do with urban planning and all along those lines. A lot of people are doing this whole notion of smart cities, and I know you talk about that on your show and everything like that. So I'll ask Rick. Rick, what's your take on smart cities? I think LA is a smart city, and I think we're a smart city over here and everything like that. So what's your take on this whole
Sorry,
idea?
what kind of city?
They're called smart cities. They're cities that are using a lot with technology and other things to help with the planning. And you can look up the definition, but they're called smart cities and everything like that. Maybe Sharif can give us a
So
what kind
okay,
of
so
definition.
LA, LA is known for having somewhat corrupt government.
Mhm.
So like a lot of big cities, like I think MAGAs like to complain about Chicago a lot,
They do.
but frickin' our city council, like we have a history of people on the city council being arrested by the FBI. So I don't know how smart we are. I mean, LA is unique in a lot of ways. It shouldn't be a city at all. It uses water stolen from the rest of the state to turn a desert area into a livable area. Though, we don't have enough water to stop a huge fire when it breaks out.
Yeah.
Um,
Dr. Sharif, if you could, because I know your people have talked about it on your show, and I have an idea of what it means because I know a lot of it involves technology and everything like that. But maybe you can give me and Rick a better definition of what a smart city is, because I think there's some cities in the nation that consider themselves smart cities as well.
Yeah, basically with Texas Austin with Tando, I'm working for Gayapoli strategy. And Gayapoli is a beautiful city. Definitely, technology is a factors because of artificial intelligence, AI industries, automations, and all of the technology innovations. Mm, our everything is changing. Our educations, our healthcare, our digital infrastructure, digital twins, housing, and all of the system is changing, including transportation. So what I think is that beside these innovations and new infrastructures, we need to take care of our nature. We need to take care of our natural ecosystems and all of the things. So we have to go for combination. I do not want to say it's a smart city, but combination of nature and new innovations. This is the way we can protect our cities and other things, step
Right.
by step. Even though I do not want to say Bangladesh or Dhaka highly deploying these kind of things, step by step we are introducing these innovations, what it called this Gayapoli strategy. Texas Austin also same things, we are introducing the same thing. And also like India or Dubai is a very good place, Singapore's and Kuala Lumpur's. These are the places they are step by step introducing this concept. But I believe that still we have to go for detailed research. We have to understand the how we can build up our cities and how it can be livable cities for our citizen. That is more important for me.
So I would call LA a stupid city because of some of the stuff we do. We keep making our freeways wider, but it doesn't help with traffic jams. You know, the 405, the 101. These are some of the worst, most crowded freeways in the country. And is LA engaging in initiatives to have people drive less, to help people work remotely? I don't know. LA is the capital, the world capital of entertainment, yet we don't give enough tax incentives to TV and movies who want to stay here to work. So we lose that business to the rest of the world, to Vancouver, to Georgia, to New Mexico. So, you know, LA could be a lot smarter.
Yeah, it definitely could be a lot smarter. By the way, Trump was talking about the American role in Europe and everything like that, and I talked about that before you fellas got here and everything like along those lines. And he came up with a new term. You know, he loves to make up words, but apparently he said that Europe is facing civilizational erasure and everything like that. So he wants, I guess, the
So,
US.
okay. Let's talk about that. So white people, like we live in the U.S. is what, 55 something percent white.
Mhm.
And so we look at the rest of the world and we think, well, we don't do the math. If you look at the rest of the world is like 8% white people.
Mhm.
And it has been for, I don't know, centuries. The most people in the world are not white people. You know, China, 1.4 billion people. India, 1.4 billion people. You know, less than 1% white, each of those places. So, like, then guys like Trump, who's an old ass bigot, like, look, somebody gives him some statistics, some bullshit about, oh, I don't know, like England is 10% Muslim now, and Trump is like, ooh, civilizational erasure. No, like things change. The world goes on, and no, white people are not going to disappear, and you don't need to go like. Anyway, he's an asshole. Is the deal?
No, and apparently, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this because I got an investment question for you in a minute. But this one's world politics and everything. Apparently, Putin and Modi are still meeting and everything, Sasha, and he is vowing to give oil shipment to India that will be uninterrupted. I know that Trump and others are trying to get them to actually cut back on their oil consumption, but he's even praising Modi in order to do some transactional stuff himself and get India to agree to take this oil and all along those lines. So, what is your take on this notion of Putin and Modi having a friendship moment and everything like that?
I think it's very logical for Modi to do what he does because it benefits his country, his people. Because if he can, you see, the politics is a very fluid and uncertain thing. Today it can go one way and tomorrow it will go another way. But the prices for oil, that's something real, something tangible. And if India wants to pursue its policy of buying cheap natural resources, including ones from Russia, which will benefit India, its economy, its people, it's very logical. So the United States is a very unreliable friend. So even if India would acquiesce to support U.S. policy, but there is no such thing as U.S. policy. It's an ad hoc actions. There is no real strategy behind U.S. policy whatsoever. It's now run by real estate developers, friends and relatives of Trump, with absolutely no accountability to Congress or to any governmental body. So what can I say? India is realistic in its approach to cooperation with Russia. And Russia is, of course, very logical in trying to expand its marketplace. And because of US policy, a lot of changes are I'm seeing are going to happen. See, Putin is not yielding even 1 inch of his stance. So whatever the movement, in the first place, as I said before, I don't understand Trump's obsession with a peace between Russia and Ukraine. What is his business? He is making money on delivering U.S. Arms to Europe and further to Ukraine. So U.S. is making tons of money. Why would he want to change that? Or say, okay, here is a peace. Okay, no more weapon sales. Is it good for U.S. Manufacturers? I don't think so. So who is benefiting from the peace in Russia and Ukraine except Trump and his family? How United States and its people are benefiting? Anybody could provide an answer to that.
I have no idea. Maybe the fellas have an idea, but I can't think of a way that we're benefiting. And definitely,
But I mean, Trump is a bad guy, a selfish guy. Anything time Trump does anything to benefit the U.S., it's kind of by accident, or it works. It also benefits him.
Well, I got a question for you, Rick, and everything.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about his. He pardoned a guy who defrauded people out of $1.6 billion, or he commuted his sentence. Now the guy doesn't have to pay back any of the money.
Right.
How is that fair? How does that benefit anybody? And it makes people speculate this guy with the hundreds of millions of dollars that he now gets to keep, that he fraudulently took. People think that, well, there has to be some back alley deal where Trump is going to get 20, 30 million from the guy for doing him that $1 billion favor.
Well, go ahead.
The United States and its government, of course, has become a transactional for sale situation where people can buy their way in to achieve certain results. And it's even, in many cases, it's well known the price they have to pay. Maybe they have to put some money into cryptocurrency fund run by his son or somebody else that is in charge of that. Or you can donate your money to a ballroom the build and so on. So it's becoming really obnoxious system of government which benefits very few and doesn't benefit majority of people.
Well, apparently he also gets upset when he doesn't make a part of the deal, because apparently right now there is a major merger. That's what I was going to ask you, Sasha, really quickly, that is going to impact the entertainment world. And I was wondering Rick's thoughts about this, but Trump administration is viewing the deal with heavy skepticism. That's what some officials are saying. And this is the deal between Netflix and Warner Brothers, where they are going to buy Warner Brothers for $72 billion. But I guess because he's not involved in the deal, that's why he's skeptical and everything, because they're saying Netflix is going to buy Warner Brothers, which is a major Hollywood franchise, for $72 billion. So what are we thinking about this merger? So I'll start with you, Rick, but definitely Sasha, even as an investment, because I know that you've done some stuff, I think, if I remember correctly, with Netflix in the past.
Well, all I care about is, will this get more people employed making stuff? Because in the year 2020 was the high point for making stuff. Streamers like Netflix spent billions and billions because they wanted to establish a competitive moat. Netflix wanted to be the streamer that people went to. All the other streamers wanted to do that too. And they were spending like crazy. They were not expecting to make the money back because they were fighting for dominance. And then COVID came along. We needed entertainment, and we had a couple of years we were locked in at home, and we had great entertainment. Then all the streamers realized that nobody was going to dominate, and so they quit making stuff, and now people don't have jobs. So if this Netflix merger, if Netflix starts thinking maybe we can become the king shits of entertainment again, maybe they'll start spending billions again making stuff. Also the head of Time Warner, David Zaslav, he's one of those guys that you don't want running an entertainment company because he's an accountant type guy. He had one year where he made more than $400 million for running Time Warner. And he's a guy who shelved completed movies that people want to see for the tax write-off. The Batgirl movie, already made, in the can, ready to show, decided not to ever show it because somehow he gets a tax write-off. The Roadrunner versus Coyote movie, same deal, already made, never going to see it. So if Netflix buying Time Warner and becoming his boss, or I don't know what kind of deal he's going to have, maybe we'll get to see these movies. Maybe I don't know that it's a terrible thing that Time Warner has been bought because they've had bad behavior.
Yep, we'll see how that plays out. What's your take on it, Sasha, from an investment standpoint? I think I've heard you say that you've invested in the past in Netflix, or it might be one of your other investment show people.
Well, I'll tell you that Netflix experiencing now a slower rate of growth, and it cannot beat its own numbers. So the so-called organic growth of Netflix is very limited. So to increase its market share, he is buying competitors whose results are much worse than those Netflix. So when you incorporate two entities, one with the higher results and one with the low results, you will get something in the middle, which will be less than Netflix's own performance. So I would think that Netflix, as a result, will go down. Actually, it's in downtrend anyway. So, and I'm a user of Netflix, and sometimes I'm looking at what's new on there. So, there's nothing really much to see. And even older movies that I wouldn't mind to watch once again, a lot of them are being taken out. I don't know for what reason, but they're taken out, and there's less and less movies to see.
Yeah, Sasha's right. There is not clarity about it used to be when TV was broadcast, you knew the ratings, but the numbers that the streamers get are secrets. You don't know why they make the decisions they make. Also, Netflix has a PE ratio of 43, which means, it's a great company, a very successful company, but if the news isn't always good about subscriber numbers all the time, you're going to take a big hit because that's a huge PE rate. And Sasha can explain it better than I can, but sometimes Netflix has a good quarter, they add subscribers, sometimes they don't, and then the stock loses 10-15%.
You see, as much as getting new customers, it's retaining customers, and it's not always successful because a lot of people are being disillusioned. They're making a lot of new TV series, and they are shot somewhere in Turkey or some other places, and you can see that they're saving on each issue, the locations, the resources, the quality of the actors involved, and so on. And you know what? I'm not very optimistic on Netflix at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to help you out a little bit on the price earnings ratio because, I like investment guys because they try to make it confusing, but it's really simple. Let's imagine you made $1,000 this year, Rick. Okay, and you had a 43 PE ratio. You multiply the 1,000 times 43, and you have 43,000. So they're saying your company is worth 43,000, 43 times the earnings of $1,000. So here's where it becomes ludicrous. Let's say you made 10,000 this year. You had a little business, lemonade stand, made 10,000. You multiply it by 43, your business is worth 430,000. You see the problem with those high PE ratios? I have a real problem with it. I want to invest in it. And places like Tesla sometimes was maintaining 1,000 PE ratio. And I don't know what it is now, but it's insane. The intelligent investor would stay away from it. So the first thing you want to do is look at those P ratios. If Netflix is 43, I'm out. It's real simple because, the company isn't worth 43 times its earnings.
You see this on Shark Tank all the time where people come in and they say, we'll sell you 10% of the company for $100,000. And
Right.
then the sharks say, well, how much money did you make this year? And they say
Right.
$50,000. And
Yeah.
so you're saying 50,000 in sales equals a company worth $1 million? No,
No.
that's
It-
only
it-
a
it-
20 PE rating.
You know, I mean, the PE ratio is out of control. And so the thing is, it's kind of a simple concept because you just take your earnings, how much did you make, multiply it. Now, a PE ratios in financial services is about 12 times. So if you made $1 million, your company's worth 12 million. You see what I mean? But still, that's high. That's on a publicly traded market. If you were not publicly traded, you made $1 million, your PE ratio is usually 1, which means your company's only worth $1 million.
But
Seriously.
sometimes you can find a decent company with a PE ratio of like 6. Like when Luigi Mangione shot the CEO of United Healthcare,
Right.
I bet you, I don't know what the PE ratio was, but it was probably under 10 because people hate that freaking company. But with a PE ratio of like 8 or something, it's a highly investable country.
Yeah, and see, my argument, and I know they're shutting down the Department of Education, Jacoby is in the background, which is a good idea because they should have this taught in high school. The PE ratios are not that hard to comprehend. This is not difficult stuff. But securities brokers and people in the industry, they don't want people to know how money works because they have a super competitive advantage if they can discuss P ratios and go, oh, well, you know a lot, or you have beta or alpha. I mean, it's just, it's really insane. When most of the stuff, I don't know how to describe it, in financial services is actually pretty easy. You know, I'm hiring a couple more people to work there, and then I go through this. I'm going, you know, after we train them, it is just not that hard. The hard part is learning it because it's so obfuscated. But once you learn it, it's actually pretty simple. However, our educational system doesn't do that. Instead, this is where I object to the OU scandal. Remember the lady that failed her gender studies class? What are we doing? Why is the state of Oklahoma subsidizing a gender studies class? And how come she couldn't read the room and realize you're in front? You're
running a scam. Running a scam. She's a good-looking Bible girl.
Yeah, that part's true.
The reason she took that class is she wanted to be offended. She wanted to create a shitstorm, and she will ride it into a pundit career where she gets to go on Fox News and earn a $300,000.
Oh yeah, no, she can monetize this pretty good. By the way, if she's doing this as part of a scam, which might be true, then I'd say she's pretty smart because she just outplayed a lot of people, you know, because she intentionally flunked it and intentionally ran to social media so she could make out a ton of money. Then I got to give her a lot of credit.
You got to give her credit.
She should, you know what?
Here's Jacoby, the defender of the life.
Here's what she should do. She should apply for academic credit, independent study for running the scam on the college because that's an educational experience.
Are we talking about
everything like that?
Are we real quick, Mark? Are we talking about the lady who failed the test and complained that she said that she was quoting the Bible or whatever, but she wasn't even citing anything? And honestly, the people and she failed that paper or failed the class. Even in religious studies, she would have failed the class. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah,
the one that's actually making up this whole thing?
Yeah, we agree.
But yet you're using that as, hey, this is your arbiter of truth, which shows your argument that you don't even understand what the Department of Education actually is for when you're complaining that the Department of Education being closed down is a good thing because they're not actually setting the actual academic classes for each city or each state. That's not what the Department of Education does. So now you're making a falsehood about what the Department of Education does to complain about financial studies. And as you see, I'm going in reverse to point out every flaw in your argument and then talking about the financial literacy and everything else, which if you're saying that all these things are unnecessary and not really needed and only financial literacy is needed, well, then you're actually eliminating a lot of the actual studies from teaching, education, social services, medical, and all these other things that you're saying that are unnecessary. Even your position as a lawyer becomes unnecessary based on your whole argument. So then, again, it becomes a lack of education on what the actual Department of Education is. So I don't know really what we're arguing here. What
We're not.
conversation's about.
We're not. We're in agreement that the girl is running a scam on the school and on the media. She's a bullshitter. And Nick was questioning, why do we need things like gender studies? And I can tell you, you do need that stuff because it impinges on, in the state of California, we have a big debate going on between Halle Berry and Governor Newsom, because Halle Berry has sponsored a menopause awareness bill that gets more resources to menopausal and premenopausal women. And Newsom has vetoed this 2 years in a row, saying it devotes too many resources to this, and it will cost people, everybody else, too much money, taxpayers. So that's a real issue in society. Gender stuff is an issue with infant mortality, for instance, where women's pain gets ignored more than men's disregarded. A woman comes to the hospital and says, I'm in pain, and everybody's like, and especially if it's a black woman. And this is one reason why black women have higher infant mortality rates and a higher rate of dying during pregnancy, because so you need to study this shit to make stuff like that better.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. I do have some good news for women and women's studies people and people that are wanting to see the improvement of women in a field that I have a interest in, even though I haven't heard as much of the modern stuff as I probably should have. But in the jazz field, the top albums have come out and everything like that. And they're saying that 4 of the album's leaders are women, and 5, including 3 of those 4, feature prominent female sidemen and everything like that, or side people, I should say, and everything that. But they say some of the top albums were released by indie labels, 4 of them on labels that are also artist owned. So the artists actually own the label. So we're seeing some entrepreneurship that's in the forefront of jazz, as well as some women taking the lead, including this lady, Mary Halvorson, that has the top 2 albums and everything like that. So maybe we're going to see some improvement. But Sasha, you're a musical fan. I don't know how much you're a fan of jazz. I know you're a fan of classical, but how would you compare the music of today to the music of the past?
Well, it's a funny thing because I'm listening to a lot of music, including music from the past, and it's superior to today's music in all elements: the melody, the rhythm, the quality of interpretation, the stature of the artist is there's so much difference. Same thing like if you see soccer matches of a few years ago, for example, between Real Madrid and Barcelona. And I'm talking about Barcelona when Messi was playing, and Iniesta, and Neymar, and Suarez, and I can go on and on. And it was a soccer of the highest quality, in my opinion, unrivaled. I don't think that soccer ever was on that level, which demonstrated, especially, they call it El Clásico in Spain, this particular matches between Real Madrid and Barcelona, which were head and shoulders above any other teams in Spain, and not only Spain, probably in all Europe, and maybe all over the world. So sorry, I cannot tell you a lot of greatest thing about jazz these days, and even the jazz as itself, it's becoming more intertwined with other genres and so on. So to have a pure jazz today, you have to immediately go back to times of Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, and others. Otherwise, it's kind of they call it fusion, they call it some other things. It's not really a jazz. It's like jazz, it has elements of jazz, but it's not a jazz.
All right, so the main difference between music today and music of 50 years ago is 50 years ago, musicians could make money. Now the money has been squeezed out of music. 50 years ago, you sold a record album for $6, $7. The artist, even though he's getting ripped off by the record label, makes $1 per album. Now there are no frickin' albums to speak of. It's all
No, but
streaming.
these are like the top 10 jazz albums, and that's the thing that they brought up was that 4 of them are on labels that the artists own. So they got tired of trying to get on somebody else's labels. So Pyroclastic, Greenleaf, and Yes are all artist-owned labels, and they own 4 of the top 10 and everything like that.
Well,
So,
imagine Sasha was talking about the quality of soccer. Imagine how shitty soccer would be if only 100 soccer players in the world made more than $100,000 a year. That's kind of like what happens with music. The only way to make a ton of money, like Taylor Swift is a billionaire because she goes on super famous, goes on concert tours, sells tickets. How many musicians can fill a freaking stadium? It's a disrupted business. It's a terrible business, and yeah, it leads to perhaps fewer people making product, which means that the product's gonna not be as innovative and great as it was in previous decades.
and then sometimes people will do interesting things because I know that they did it 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year. That sometimes people that have a specific style of music that they like, and if they've got investors, they will bring their stars from overseas and everything like that. Because I know that even at the cultural center that I work, some Indian investors and people that have a tremendous amount of money, they brought one of their stars over from India for a concert. It might have been even a dual concert, like they might have done 2 concerts if I remember correctly, and everything like that. But that they were wanting to see their music from their country, so they brought it over and paid for it themselves because Bilal I think is his name, is not a cheap performer from India. He's actually an India pop star and everything like that. So, but they have the money to burn. Not everybody has that money to burn to bring in their version of Taylor Swift, because he would be a version of Taylor Swift, but probably like a male version and everything like that for them.
I mean, the male version of Taylor Swift right now is Bad Bunny.
Right.
But that's, I mean, but there's just not room for a lot of. I mean, when you look at the '70s, there was a record store across the street from my dad's dress shop, and I used to go in there, and there was a wall of albums, the top 100 albums with great cover art and freaking, the legendary freaking, and that doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't exist anymore. Just really quickly, and it's coming back to one of the other stories, and I don't know if Jacoby's coming back or whatever, and you can ask him that question you had for him, and I know Nick's still here and everything. But Rick, would you be trying to put back a jewelry item if it had been stolen and
if it came out of somebody's butthole?
Yes.
Yeah, this thief guy, Fabergé eggs are these little great works of art that were made for the Russian Tsar at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. There's only a few dozen of them in the world. Some of them are this big, and I guess some of them are this big. And some a-hole was being shown one, and he popped it in his mouth, stole it he's being accused of swallowing it.
Right.
So, yeah, they're going to wait till he poops it out.
He has done that now. It took him, I think they said about 6 days to get it out.
Yeah, but I mean, that thing is probably worth $150,000. So yes, I would still, be interested if I could get a deal on it because it came out of somebody's butt. I would, yes.
So
I would
still go there and get it if you could and everything like that. Cool.
I mean, I bought an antique picture frame, and when I got it, it was in bad. I got a deal on it because it was in bad shape, and when I got it, it was full of rat poop. It had probably been in a barn someplace, and I was happy to have it full of rat poop because it meant that I got it for 20% of what it would have otherwise cost.
I hope Nick is still around and maybe he'll pop on and everything like that. But I see Spain's in the news for a couple of things. One, they are one of the 4 countries that boycotted Eurovision, which me and Sasha were talking about. But then I also see that they are planning a wild boar cull, which means they're killing a bunch of wild boar because they have apparently a swine fever outbreak that has hit their exports and everything along those lines. So definitely there's even an article that says,
wait, why are they boycotting Eurovision?
Because of Israel.
Ah, okay.
Because Israel is being accepted. So Israel was cleared to participate, and those 4 countries are quitting in protest for Israel's participation.
All right. So I don't know about wild boar in Spain, but wild pigs in Texas, across the south of the US, are an excuse for gun lunatics to have AK-47s and AR-15s, because there are these huge, like, gangs of wild boar that devastate everything in parts of Texas, because pigs are smart. And when you get these wild boars that are aggressive, and I don't know, go 300, 400 pounds, they're dangerous as heck. And that's a perfect excuse for you to get your semi-auto rifle out and shoot at a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, it makes sense and everything. By the way, Chile has become the latest country to ban smartphone use during class. I know we talk a lot about what goes on in education, but apparently in Chile, you cannot use your smartphone in class. I guess they have you turn them in when you're coming in and all along those lines. And I know Australia has been doing some major bans around teenagers and young people and their social media. So we can start seeing more restrictions on folks' use of technology, whether it's the pages like Facebook and stuff like that, social media, and also just the phones in general. Because I think in here, I got to ask my nephews, the high school kids are not supposed to have the phone with them in some classes and all along those lines.
I mean, that's one reason why we could use a Department of Ed, because instead of banning the technology, you have to figure out how to work with the tech, because you can't ban smartphones 24 hours a day. Frickin', if kids are going to be on their smartphones every other hour of the day. If you ban them during school becomes the most boring part of the day, and you got a bunch of kids who are just putting in their time in class, like just counting the minutes till they can get back to the information feed on their frickin' phone. You got to incorporate the tech into education, and we've been doing a crap job of that. And and we pay the price because kids are distractible. They're distanced from the affairs of the world. They can't write for shit because they use AI to do their assignments. We got to figure out how to Sasha's got a thing.
Okay, more interesting thing I'll tell you right now is that all this Trump's plans about peace between Ukraine and Russia include some commercial proposals, and one of them, Trump wants to get involved in the $250 billion of Russian money stashed in Europe. And Europe is working on the plan to use this money to help Ukraine, rebuilding of Ukraine once the war is over, and so on. So Trump came now today with a plan to freeze this money so European Union cannot use them to helping Ukraine, which leaves an opportunity in the future for Trump to get its hands on this money one way or another. But don't think that even if that plan will work out, it's not going to go to American people. It will go to enrich his family, start some kind of phony projects, so the money will be used to developing this project, feasibility studies, working out until all this money will be gone. So this is what Trump, this American misfortune, of the highest kinds. There was never such an atrocious situation for American people in its 250 years history.
Yeah, Trump is a truffle pig. If you want to find expensive mushrooms called truffles, you get a pig that can sniff out the truffles, and you take it into the forest and they sniff around. Trump is a truffle pig for piles of money. Trump sees a pile of $1/3 $1 trillion, Russian savings, investments from the oligarchs, where they've moved the money out of Russia into European banks. And when Russia attacked Ukraine, that money was frozen. Trump sees this big wad of money and he wants to help himself to a chunk of it.
He wants to help himself to it, but apparently he's not the only one that has that kind of mindset. One of Trump's peers, in the sense of being a corrupt politician, is upset. So now he's writing a memoir where he's trying to reclaim and save his reputation. And maybe that's what Trump's going to do if he ever gets out of office and everything like that, because there's a book called Reconciliation, and definitely on the first page, this particular leader says, in recent years, misinterpretations and false truths about my life have been growing, and for decades he was deemed a national savior for returning his country to democracy, and he stood down a military coup. Then came the womanizing. That sounds familiar. The spending on safaris to shoot African elephants during a worldwide recession, and finally the unseemly wealth of Saudi origin sloshing around in foreign bank accounts that he had access to and everything like that. So apparently the former king of Spain, that was his background and everything, and he's trying to save his reputation and all along those lines. So it seems like he was a bad hombre, to use that term, and maybe he and Trump can get there and compare notes.
Yeah, all right. I mean, people are going to do what they do.
Yeah, and apparently he was a bad hombre as well. So we'll see what goes on in that space and everything like that.
He wasn't as bad an hombre as his grandpa, who was Francisco. Wait, no, not. I'm sorry, not the. Anyway, no, I'm about to say something stupid, so forget that.
Go ahead. This might have been stupid and everything like that.
But let's. So Jacoby's not back. I want to mention LeBron again, because LeBron had this streak that went almost 19 years, 10 points a game for 19 years. He had a chance to continue it. He had a shot at it. The game was tied with 3 seconds to go. LeBron could have taken a shot. Instead, he shoveled the ball to another player who made a 3-point shot, won the game for the Lakers. So LeBron is also the king of assists. He's number one in points scored, but he is number 4 in all-time assists. So he's great at getting the ball to other players, and he sacrificed a shot at continuing his streak to win the game, which is, I don't know, that's, people complain about LeBron, who complains about being fouled a lot, and they say he's a prima donna, but you don't get to last 23 seasons in the NBA without trying to protect yourself physically.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the only one. Seth Curry tries to protect himself. So that's just brought his brother onto his team and everything like that. So we'll see how this all plays out. He even has a commercial where he talks about the fact that he's been with the same coach for a number of years and everything like that, and that he even has the same guy throw him the ball at the first practice shot and all along those lines. So yeah, a lot of these folks are very much in that space.
I have some other stuff to say about LeBron. Is worth about $1.3 billion. He and his wife have a combined, so they basically run a huge corporation, $1 billion, and I think it would be weird when you're to have sex. You run with your co-CEO, you run a corporation that's worth $1.3 billion. I think that would make it weird to have sex.
Yeah, it could be weird and everything like that, but it didn't seem to hurt when he was living. Kobe Bryant and some other folks that had.
All right, well, Kobe Bryant was not as good a businessman as frickin' LeBron is. LeBron is a very careful, smart business guy. You know, he's. When you look at the great business people who've come out of the NBA, you got LeBron, you got Magic Johnson. I bet you Magic is worth $2 billion. Yeah. Like where, he tests positive for AIDS. He has to quit the NBA. He goes into business, and now he's worth, let's see, Magic Johnson worth $1.5 billion.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of different businesses. He's got theaters. He's got some other franchises that he
owns. Part of the Dodgers. He owns part of the Lakers. He owns probably part of the Rams.
Yeah, he owns a bunch of stuff. So he's got some, and there's good investment people. I think that I know that Doc Rivers, who I knew when I was in school, had some restaurants that he owned, and he had some other business ventures. So he's a very smart, cagey guy. So I'm thinking that he's probably got a number of businesses and not just the Milwaukee Bucks and everything like that.
Doc Rivers' net worth estimated at $60 million. Right. Not bad for a coach.
not bad for a coach at all, and everything like that. What are the Duffy's worth and everything? They're the ones that did Stranger Things, and that is actually based here in North Carolina. And actually, some of the places mentioned in that movie are Durham assets, because they mentioned Enzo's, which is a piece of.
Now, let's see. I'm not sure. The Duffer Brothers, the net worth estimated at 30 million.
Yeah,
of course, they haven't been around as long as LeBron and Magic and Doc Rivers. So,
and not bad for some young kids from Jordan High School and everything like that. So they've done well. As we get ready to wrap up, I know we sometimes talk, you, Andrew, Toby, and me to some degree, about the divide in, or the black and brown people being targeted and everything like that. But apparently Spain is offering and sees itself as a beacon for immigrants. So a lot of Latin American folks, even from American countries and other Latin American countries, are glad to go to Spain. But there seems to be a divide in the black and brown community, because apparently the folks from Africa aren't as welcomed as the folks from the Latin American countries. So the New York Times just recently did a story on this, and this is an interesting idea that some countries welcome one type of immigrant more than they welcome another. And I know that sometimes Sasha even talks about some countries being only for themselves. I think it's like Poles are for Polish only and stuff like that along those lines. So what is our take? Because definitely Spain is a Hispanic country. Even Nick brings that up sometimes.
Well, so, I mean, climate change adds to that, because the middle of Africa is the Sahara Desert.
Right.
And as conditions around the desert get worse, you have failed nations. You have millions of people who need to move because there's no food, because there's civil war, and they go north. They try to get to the Mediterranean if they can avoid being made into slaves in like Libya and stuff. And then they have to cross the Mediterranean and claim asylum when they hit whatever country they can get to. And Spain is one of the easier countries to. It's not, none of it's easy, but Spain is down below France. It's maybe easier to get to than some of the other Mediterranean countries, depending on what part of Africa you're coming from.
And that could have even been the case way back in the day, because I know that even during the civil rights era and everything, there was a number of, we were talking about music earlier, folks that were part of the Harlem Renaissance that moved to France and other places in Europe because they were more welcome there than they were back in their home country. I'm thinking about Josephine Baker. I'm thinking about some of the authors and everything like that. I think Baldwin even spent some time in France, if I remember correctly. So definitely they were more welcome than sometimes they were even in their own country and everything along those lines. So that is, but then other people from other countries that were of similar melon might not have been as welcome. So
I mean, the choice between, living in America and getting the N-word yelled at you,
right,
and living in frickin' Paris and drinking champagne and, hooking up there is, of course.
Not much of a choice.
Josephine Baker, I mean, she was pretty interesting. She had like a crazy, a great career. Did some work as a spy for the U.S. or the Allies. She moved in all these circles, which made it possible for her to obtain information. A smart, talented, a wildish lady.
Yeah, she has a wild thing. By the way, now this is something that is crazy. It's coming from the world of entertainment. George Clooney is out there, and George Clooney apparently was recalled, maybe you did this as well, but he recalls regularly handling old ladies' foot coins before fame. So, we've all had some disgusting jobs and everything like that. So he was reflecting on his pre-Hollywood jobs on Live.
Yeah, he sold shoes. Yeah. He said George Clooney didn't become a star until age 33, and he says that was a good thing for him, because he said as a younger man, if he'd become famous at like 21, it wouldn't have lasted because he would have been an idiot.
Right. And I know some people that have had those kind of jobs, selling shoes, selling dresses, selling a number of other things that have now gone on to fame and success in their roles. I think even the ones I mentioned, the Duffer Brothers, they probably had some interesting jobs here in North Carolina. I think Jacoby may even know those fellows. I know people
having shitty jobs as a younger person Like Sasha had one of the shittiest jobs in the world, and you were in the Russian army, right, Sasha? Soviet army. That's
It
got,
wasn't a job; it was mandatory service.
yeah,
Something.
but it was probably pretty miserable, right?
Yes, of course.
He didn't have any choice, but then he had a great job because one of his other jobs, which a friend of mine, I think is back from his stint, but he should be going back out, was, if I remember correctly, Sasha, you also were a cruise ship musician, maybe even a cruise ship entertainment director. I forgot which title you had.
That's right.
You-
Cunard Cruise Line.
Kennard, right? And you were the entertainment director on that job, or just a musician on the job? That's what I couldn't remember.
My first experience was a musician, and the second experience, a musical director.
Okay, I thought you were a musical director at one point because I think that's what my friend that used to be at our cultural center. I think that's what he went to go be as a musical director. I want to say it was for Carnival or one of the Carnival ships, but I think he's back in town. I got to get in touch with him and see how that first run went because he had some jobs on one of our local campuses and is now doing entertainment stuff, but is now doing the cruise thing. So I'll see how he enjoyed it.
My wife and I are going on one for our 35th anniversary, and cruise ships they're kind of cheesy, but they're great if you're lazy. Everything is right there on the ship. They feed you all the time. The food is good. You want to eat a huge meal and then go take a nap. It's just right there. They take you to this, if you want to see a pretty city, we're going to go up to Vancouver.
They feed you too well, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it's cheap. It doesn't cost any. If you get a deal, it doesn't cost any more than a regular hotel.
Right. Doesn't cost any more than a regular hotel at all, but they do have some cheesy entertainment. I mean, the Dueling Pianos was a little bit cheesy, and they had some kind of like those Vegas type musicians and everything. So they can have some great entertainment.
My wife and I will go to a show on the ship, and sometimes we'll be like, we'll sit in the back because we don't know if it's going to be any good. And a lot of times it's not great, and we will sneak out.
Sneak out and you'd be like, oh, I don't want to stick around for this one. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
They'll blame you for that. But we'll have some more World Edition, and we might have some guests next week. I'm still trying to send out some emails, including some about finance and other stuff like that, including some other things. But right now we're going to get out
All
of
right.
here.
Have a good weekend.
I know that at midnight we have not midnight, at noon we have the chess show, so we're going to do that as well. So
All right.
definitely.
See you later. Good weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. We're not doing our show this week, are we? I guess not.